there's a nice little appendices that you're going to see. There is the intro to chickens, the care for chicks specifically is where we're going to be starting, and then the feeding and enrichment, the housing for adults, and then growing your flock, which is really important because chicken math really does get away from people a lot of the time. All right, let's start with chick care. The biggest thing that you're going to need is, of course, a water, a food dish, and a type of heat source. On here, it is going to show how a smaller water dish is going to help you with giving water to 2 to 5 chicks. Now, this is going to be about a quart size water jug, whether it be a plastic or a glass that with its little reservoir at the bottom. It doesn't matter. As long as it's about a quart size or even a half pint, that's what this is going to be used for. And this will be about a daily change of water. And then for 6+ chicks, you can go to a half gallon to a full gallon water dispenser. And of course, it is a fully sealed top, because if you did have an unsealed top, then the vacuum wouldn't work and then all the water would just spill out. Now on here, I put little granules on here which show grit or sand or rocks being put on the bottom. And what you want for that, and the reason why you have that layer of sediment on the bottom, is because chicks are so small and this is so large that if they all try to get in there at once, you could possibly have a baby chick that drowns, and we don't want that. So we're going to give them a layer of sediment so the water is not super deep. And of course, again, this is going to be able to give water to 6+ chicks for 1 all the way up to 5 days, depending on how big your flock is. And of course, now this one I decided to just do a large one. If you don't have a lot of space, you can go for a smaller size, but a half gallon size jug for food is just really easy. It's very nifty. It works out just fine. But for food, you're going to want to use chick-specific high-protein crumble. You don't do pellets because pellets are too big and they can't eat them. It's super hard for them to try and peck at, and to make it like fit into their mouth, it'll take way too much energy for them. So just go ahead and make a pellet or a crumble form, which is very easy. It's about like $15-20 at the store, depending on the store that you go to. And this will take care of, if you want to like use it for a couple of days, all the way up to a week. 1 or 2 to 5 chicks will last you about 2 weeks with one of these containers. And then 6+ chicks will last you about a week to 5 days if you're doing a half gallon to a gallon of feed like this. And again, high protein food is super good. It's what you want for them to grow their bones and to grow fast, but not too fast, of course, unless you're doing Cornish game hen, and then, of course, that high protein is going to put a lot of meat on their bones really fast. And then, of course, we're going to go down to the heat, which heat is so important. It's going to keep your chicks feeling good and healthy. A heat lamp and a heat emitter are the 2 main ones that I know of being like the best work. A heat emitter is going to be the best because it has way less of a risk of exploding or catching fire and causing problems. But, oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But if in emergencies, or if you need like a cheap, immediate solution for flocks, or something goes out in the middle of the night, like your heat emitter just dies on you, this is a really good emergency alternative while you're trying to get a new heat emitter. Again, the reason why we don't use these very often is because they do have the chance of exploding. Thank you. That's very sweet, Rose Garden. And even though this does have a higher heat ratio than a heat emitter, this is just, again, a lot safer. Also, having adjustable legs on this for when the chicks grow up or for them being tiny, letting it go up and down, giving them the ability to huddle underneath of it is so much better. And also, they have large and medium size panels for this. They also have like heating pad versions, so you can actually have them underneath the sawdust or the sand that you might have them on. And it just gives them a nice, easy way to get heat. And of course, they will be cuddling up together. And if it's too hot, they can always move away from it. That's why you give it a specific area. Don't make up more than half of the area that they're living in with the heat emitter on hand, because they will need a way to get away from that heat if they get too hot. Now here are just a couple of tips that go with it. Again, this is telling about the circumstances of the water, which I've already talked about, and also the reasons why you want to choose an emitter and why you do have a heat lamp on hand in case of emergencies. And then let's go over to the feeding and enrichment. This is a really fun one because a lot of people get stuck on wanting to just use pellets or crumble, which, I mean, is a really great way to go, especially if you're new to this situation. But if you want to give your chickens, you know, some enrichment, some fun stuff going on, you can have a really easy, you're able to give them different grass seeds, different fruits and vegetables, and of course different bugs, because chickens are primarily insectivores. They love eating bugs, which is why I put a bunch down: crickets, isopods, worms, caterpillars, moths, what else did I put on here? Slugs and snails. And these are things that they can either grab on their own, or you can give them to them. I have isopods that I grow inside of a container, and I have like a large gathering of them. Like right now, mine are in the hundreds. I know people who have them in the thousands, and they just take a scoop, a handful of dirt with like 80 or so isopods, throw them out, and their chickens just love them so much. So insect farming is very good for anybody who aspires to have chickens, and also a garden, because these guys will make new dirt for you and fertilizer. So it's kind of a hand-in-hand situation. Also, you have different grasses. I put it on the side here. I don't know if you can see it very well, but there are hundreds of different grasses that you can use. Specifically, there is brome and orchard grass, teff hay, and then bluegrasses. These are all different ones that chickens really enjoy having, and they're very nutritious. Then, of course, at the bottom we have peas and soybeans. These are really good alternative proteins that you can put into a mix, and all of these together, if you ever decide to make your own, you can combine these ingredients and make them into your own kind of feed. Now, I do have some supplements on the back we'll get to later, but there's a lot of different things that you can do to make your chickens happy. All right, now let's go to housing. And this is kind of fun because there's a lot of different variants that you can do. I specifically chose just to do the general stationary versus portable, because a lot of people, like, you almost get oh goodness, like idea paralysis when you see all the different kinds that you could be using for this, when you only need to just have a situational awareness on what's going on. Like for me, the first one that I ever did, and the easiest one for me to do, was the stationary one, because the build on this is basically a square. You don't have to have a roof if you want to. You can just flat top it, especially if you live in a place where there's no snow. However, a lot of people like putting a nice A-line format on this, because you're able to put a window up top, or you can do a ventilation system, which is super, super nice. Now, of course, you're going to have your lay boxes, your windows for ventilation, and the ramp that goes up inside of the coop. You have a little bit of a different setup for this one, though, because this one is more mobile. You're going to make it smaller, which means that the inside of this is going to have mostly, I want to say, as big as 2 feet by 4 feet. And then you'll have wheels on the side, and you'll be taking and towing this around from different pastures, which is why you don't need as much space on the inside. If you're doing a stationary one, you usually have a gated off area that is surrounded by this, so your chickens stay in one place. If you're doing a mobile one, it's so you're able to take your chickens from pasture to pasture. And on the inside, which I have on the back of this pamphlet, you're going to have your roosts, which depending on how many you have is how many roosts that you will have, and of course your lay boxes. You should have a lay box, one lay box for every 5 hens. It's very important to do that because they don't mind having and sharing lay boxes with each other, but you still should have that. Your roosts should be big enough for a hen to have a comfortable space to be in, which is about 18 inches in width. And then, of course, for the bedding or the bottom part, you're going to put shavings or hay or, what was the other one that I did? Shavings, straw, and hay. I know that I did another one for this because it was very important. Coconut coir is a really good one as well. And what I like to do for the bottom is I like to do about 4 to 6 inches or a deep litter method. And this keeps the coop dry and cleaner for longer because the chickens will go ahead and scratch and hunt through it. And even though they pooped in it, because they're scratching and they're moving around, they will bury it over a period of time, which is really nice, convenient, and easy for you to take care of. And what you'll want to do because of that is make a latch in the back of your either stationary or portable chicken coop that will let you take out this litter more easily. Again, roosts should absolutely be 18 inches apart. Give yourself the ability to give lots of space for your girls. They will want roosts. Chickens are naturally tree birds. I know it's a very funny thing to think of because they like to stay on the ground so much, but they are tree birds. They will roost in trees if they have the ability to. So give them a nice tall roost with lots of space. And then make sure to have ventilation. That is the biggest key when it comes to having a nice and not very stinky place for your chickens to be at. It also keeps flu and colds away from your birds and influenza. And overall, it's a very nice and easy way to stylishly bring out like windows and other air vents for them, which just, makes life easier. And then lastly, we're going to go into growing your flock. There are 3 very simple ways of doing this. Of course, the first one is getting a rooster, because even though your hens don't need a rooster to lay eggs, they need a rooster to fertilize them. And after they fertilize them, they can sit on their eggs for about 21 days, though this is going to be the most stressful thing for them, and they will stop laying during this time to stay on their clutches. You have the ability to do that. However, my favorite way to do it, besides this last one, is incubating your eggs either in a large, easy, rotatable one, or you can just get a small, $20, $30 incubator all by itself. And while it will not rotate the eggs for you, there's usually a meter that tells how much hydration is happening, and also the temperature that is inside the dome. Your eggs will always have this. You will once a day turn your eggs to make sure that they are doing okay, and eggs naturally need to be rotated is something that is done by their mothers while they are on the nest, and it is something that you will have to mimic for them. This egg turner, if you get a larger one, a more commercial sized one, which is usually like for people who are doing flocks, a very, very large breeder size, or you're selling chicks, this is a really good one. It does auto turning, it does auto temp, and auto, oh my goodness, hydration basically for it. So it keeps everything humid and moist. So you will be paying a lot more. This is like $150 to $1,000 depending on how, blinged up you want to get an incubator like this versus your $20 to $30 one that you're doing by yourself. And then of course, you can always go to the farmer's market and get your own little peeps. And that is a really wonderful way to grow your flock as well. It's very easy. You have a lot of friends who usually have them at the farmer's market. This is a great way to make contacts and learn about vendors and what they have. When I was living up in Alaska, knew so many different people who had so many different chicks and varieties, and this helped me determine which would be the best choice for me in the future and what kind of chicks that I wanted to be getting. Like, one of the biggest things that people should talk about is how many different chickens and egg color there are. And by learning the different vendors and why people go through the, painstaking process of picking out different chicks and paying $5 to $20 a chick is all because of egg color and also the kind of chickens that you're providing. Like, the reason why I did these little dots here, this is all color coding. So brown eggs, white eggs, even some pink and brown eggs, and then of course your green and blue eggs. You have, of course, your Americanas, which are everybody's favorite because they are the Easter eggers. They're the ones that give you the blue eggs. If you, of course, have an Americana male, always do a rooster with this. This is a very important thing. If you have an Americana male with a buff Orpington or a brown laying female of any kind, the next generation is going to be olive eggers. They're going to give you these dark green eggs. Okay? That's a little bit of knowledge that you need to keep in your back pocket if you want to start doing egg laying situations. But there are so many brown layers, and all of them have different reasons to get them. Like Rhode Island Reds specifically are great for commercial use. So if you want a lot of eggs and you don't really care about the color of brown, Rhode Island Reds are going to be your best girls because they're going to give you an egg every single day. I've had girls who've produced somehow 2 eggs a day. It doesn't happen very often, but it happens. And then of course you have your Leghorns. These are going to be the ones who give you the beautiful white ones. Then you have your buff Orpingtons. They have beautiful brown pink eggs. Americanas have blue eggs. Barred Rocks have brown eggs. Wyandottes have very pink pale brown eggs. They're a little bit on the smaller side, so if you're worried about that, make sure you look at what kind of eggs that they have, because you are going to have chickens who lay smaller eggs than others, especially your golden lace, your silver lace Wyandottes. They're beautiful birds, but they do lay a smaller egg, especially when they're first going at it. Small first eggs are always going to be the smallest, but they do get larger. However, Wyandottes are going to have a smaller, like a medium egg on average. Nothing quail size, nothing bantam size. And your bantams, of course, are going to also have small eggs right here. And of course, bantams are a dwarf chicken. There are many different kinds of dwarf chicken. However, you will see them under the name bantam. And that will let you know that this is a small or a dwarf version of said chicken. Then you're going to have your Jersey Giants. These guys are amazing for meat because they get huge, like 3 feet tall for some of the roosters. And then, of course, they'll have these beautiful big brown eggs. You'll have your Andalusians and your Cochins. Cochins are very sweet. They're the very beautiful gray-blue birds that you see every once in a while. They have brown-pink eggs. You'll have your Silkies, which are your puffy girls. Your Brahmas, which are your big, more of a creamy white with your greens and your brown feathers. Your Cornish game hens, which are mainly for meat, and you don't need to have them necessarily for eggs. I really don't see many people who are doing them for eggs unless, again, they're breeding for these birds to be taken up later. And then you have your Sussex, which are brown eggs. Your Welsumers, which have a pinky brown. Your Polish, which can be white or brown. Then your naked necks. These ones are crazy. Naked necks are crazy because they literally don't have any feathers on their necks. And it makes them look like ostriches. Or it could be like the shaved poodle of the chicken world. That's kind of what I go for with them. But I love them. They are also very large, meat-wise. They're largely, their large breast meat is very delicious. And they also do brown eggs as well. And then these ones, the Whitings, True Greens, and Blues. These ones are crazy because they actually have the most blue jay looking like blue eggs ever. And also this just beautiful green, like emerald green for Whitings, True Blue, and Green chickens. They are a very flighty bird. They were meant to be in warm climates, and their bodies and their attitudes show that. So if you're going to be in a colder climate, make sure to have a heater inside the chicken coop. Absolutely give them a lot of space because they need it, and a lot of flying spaces, so a lot of perches for them to be on because it's so important for them specifically to go on that. All right. Finally, the supplements. It's not going to be a lot, but it's still very important. Oyster shell for calcium. If you want to have good eggs, good firm eggs with a nice shell, you have to get a good source of calcium for your chickens. You have to do oyster shell or something of a similar thing. Make sure that you can also get a fortified chicken food. That will help even better. And then grit for their gizzards, because chickens don't have teeth. So they need a way to grind their food one way, and they do that by getting stones off the ground and using them in their gizzards. And this, buying grit is just an easy way to make sure that you know that they have them. So sometimes you don't have grit or stones in your yard. That's why you buy that for. Electrolyte powder, you will get little packets that are said to be electrolytes or chicken electrolytes at the pet store. They're very cheap, but they're really good for hot days and for cold and flu season. I do a lot. I recommend them so much because you don't have to worry about your chickens as much getting dehydrated or having any kind of heat sweats that you have to worry about later on, especially in very hot weather. If you are in California, Texas, Nevada, any kind of desert area with chickens. So get those electrolytes. It helps them a lot, just like you with Gatorade playing sports. Then diatomaceous earth, of course, is great if you want to keep them safe from ticks, fleas, and oh gosh, what else? There's one more. Ticks, fleas, and mites. Mites is a really hard one to deal with everywhere. So putting diatomaceous earth in their dust bath, which is part of hygiene, put it in their dust bath. It's worth it. It makes them clean. It keeps them clean and dry, and it's nice. And also, make sure to mix it in nicely. Do not get their dust bath wet, ever. It specifically needs to be dry, or it will mess up their feathers when they, try to clean themselves. What else? Dust bath, and then just keep the coop dry, because nothing is worse than having a muddy chicken, whether it be their feet or their feathers. Oh, and last but not least, fun facts. Chickens can live up to 20 years old. crazy, but true. Especially if you give them a proper cycle. You stop letting them lay during the wintertime. You let them molt. You give them the ability to just shut off those kinds of really energy, insane motor functions, and just give them a quiet period. Super good for them. There we go. Chickens have enormous personality, ranging from soft and kind and gentle like Buff Orpingtons and Cochins, all the way to angry ginger Americanas who love to run around and try to peck you. Lots of big personality, lots of crazy personality, depending on what kind you get, which is so important why you want to choose the right kind of hen for you. If you are a new person who is looking into it, I absolutely suggest getting Orpingtons, Sussex, or Cochins as your first chicken because, again, they're very docile. They don't speak up a lot, and when they do, it's usually because they are not getting enough space from each other or because they've decided to go broody. So, choose your hens wisely when it comes to that. Then, let's see. Feeding. While mealworms are a tasty treat, there are so many different and better options for bugs for them, like black soldier beetle larvae. Those are amazing for protein. It's double the protein and way less fat, which means you don't have to worry about high cholesterol in your chickens. What a thing that you have to worry about. Now you don't have to as much. And the last thing is chickens love eating flowers and seeds. So don't worry about just giving them one thing. If you're worried about giving them enrichment, just throw out some flowers. They really love eating the buds, and it's very fun to watch. All right. I think that's all the information that I have on this so far. Thanks so much for watching this pamphlet with me. Is there any questions that any of you guys have before I head off? And again, for new people who have just gotten here, this is about chickens and hens and health for them. And if you guys don't have any questions, that is okay. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And again, I think I'm going to be doing a more, a nicer version of this on Patreon, and I'll be putting it out on, or I'll be putting the link on my YouTube channel, Crispy Critter. And if you guys want to support the channel, go to my Patreon, which I will have a link later for you guys. All right. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.